Hi, everybody. Peter Greenberg here on this first Thursday of March 2022 for our Facebook Global Travel Update. Of course, you know the drill. You can always email me your questions, send them in, or your comments, and we'll be talking about that all day today. But of course, we couldn't even begin to think about starting this session without talking about the fallout from the Russian invasion in Ukraine and what that means, not just to the people there, because we've seen those horror stories and over 1 million people fleeing that country, but also what it means to the world, the global implications that are not just rippling now, they're jetting around, literally, and lots of things to talk about there. We're not just talking about closed airspace over the Ukraine. Let's be real here. We're talking about a lot of closed airspace, about 60% of the globe essentially closed because of Russian airspace. So if you're going from Los Angeles to Asia, you're not going the normal route. You can't fly over the Soviet Union's old routes, which of course now are the Russian routes. You can't do it from London anywhere east. It's a very difficult time because we've heard about the Great Migration, the Great Resignation. Now this is the Great Rerouting, and it's not easy. In fact, in many cases, it's easier said than done because it involves different aircraft with longer ranges or refueling stops in places that they normally don't go. And of course, speaking of normally don't go, the reaction, of course, from the world is not to go anywhere. People are just canceling reservations left and right to Europe. Even countries that are not even close to the Ukraine are being canceled in terms of hotels and airline reservations. The numbers have gone up something like 700% in cancellations since just 5 days ago. Now, there's another aspect of this, of course, and it's not just passenger flights, it's cargo flights. UPS, FedEx, Atlas, all the big carriers avoiding the area, but not just avoiding the area, avoiding any country that even borders on Russia, as are many travelers. We've already seen the reaction in shipping with cargo ships being diverted or being restricted. And speaking of shipping, we've been following the escapades of the Russian oligarchs' yachts, one of which was seized in a German shipyard. Others are on the run to places like the Maldives and Montenegro, where there's no extradition treaty. This is a latter-day, cat and mouse game here. It's crazy. And the cruise lines already canceling their port calls in Russia, especially St. Petersburg, for June, July, and August. It's happening that fast. Now, at the same time, oil, more than $100 a barrel for the first time in 10 years. That's having an impact as well. We talked about this last week and the week before. Airfares were already going up, as we expected them to go up, about 7% every 10 days. Now that's spiking because of the price of fuel. And you couple that with, remember, we didn't get rid of this problem yet, the pilot shortage, and you're seeing airlines cutting capacity. Already in the last 3 months, wasn't triggered by Ukraine, but Ukraine was the catalyst. We saw Delta Airlines cutting routes. We saw American Airlines cutting routes. And when we say cutting routes, American cut 27 routes, Delta cut 10. And yesterday, United cut 17 domestic flights. That's right. Mostly out of smaller secondary and tertiary airports. But if you live in those cities, you're either out of luck or you're paying double. So get ready for that. Speaking of pilot shortage, there's one fewer pilot right now at JetBlue. His name is James Clifton. Yesterday, he got pulled off a flight in Boston. His alcohol level tested at 0.17, 4 times the legal limit. So not good times for Mr. Clifton, but at least they got him off the flight. And guess who figured it out? The TSA, because when he was going through security, an agent there noticed that he was impaired. And he was also in uniform. That's the tip-off. We'll follow that story as well. One other thing I want to update you on before we get to questions and other stories. Remember last week I talked about that cargo ship, the Felicity Ace? This is what it looked like 4 days ago. Let's run that picture. As you can see, still on fire, still adrift, still burned out, as you can see. And what was in the cargo hold? For those of you who don't remember or didn't listen last week, this is a tough one. 1,000 Porsches, nearly 200 Bentleys, 1,000 luxury high-end VW cars. The loss alone, if the fire wasn't put out, $400 million minimum. Well, look at that picture and savor it, because yesterday, this ship that started in Germany was headed to Rhode Island. It sank. So in the next couple of weeks or months, if somebody's putting on eBay a Bentley with a little water damage, don't buy it. Wow, talk about insurance losses on that one. I would not like to be the insurance company writing that policy. But I think there'll be some lessons learned here. At least if you're shipping a high-end car, you don't want to put it on a ship with everybody else's high-end car for this reason. Now, thankfully, nobody on the ship was injured or hurt. They were all airlifted out, but the ship was basically abandoned and drifting. And since they couldn't put the fire out, sooner or later, the ship sank, and it just did that. So that's the update on a ship you never heard of before, but now you've heard of it, the Felicity Ace. All right, let's go to some of your comments. Ju saying hi from Japan. Christopher saying greetings from Miami. Lindy's in Ventura, as she always is. Greetings from Croatia. We don't want wars anymore. Peace to all. I echo that. I hope everybody else does as well. By the way, I mean, I was wrong. I lost the bet. I did not think that Putin was going to invade. I just thought he was playing high-stakes poker and was going to back down when he got concessions, but he went in. And if any of you are history nuts, you'll know that getting in is easy. Getting out is a much more serious problem. I'm fascinated with what his game plan is now, especially what his end game is. I don't think anybody knows that. We will be obviously following that story because I've been in touch with officials in Poland. They've taken everybody in. They're not known for doing that in Poland, but they did it this time. And so many countries are saying to people who are coming in from the Ukraine, don't worry about visas, don't worry about passports, just come in. We'll figure this out in the next 3 years. This is a long haul problem here and not going away anytime soon, which of course has that travel implication that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Hi from Beverly Hills. This Zora says, I'm planning to go to the end of April to Belgium and Portugal for 2 weeks. Now I don't know what to do. Of course, nobody has a crystal ball, but at the same time, any recommendation, please. I'm going to give you a qualified answer based on intuition and experience. It is, to me, unthinkable. It wasn't unthinkable to me that Putin might invade. I just didn't think he would. But it is unthinkable for me to think he's going to cross the line into any NATO country. And so if you want to go to Belgium and Portugal, here's my advice. It's taking a calculated risk and protecting yourself. Number one, you want to book it on a U.S. carrier because if you have to cancel, at least you won't lose your money with draconian change fees. Number two, you better get it in writing, a confirmation of what your refund rights are from the other travel providers on your trip, the hotels, the resorts, the tour operators, a safari guide, whatever. Get that in writing. Always pay for it with a credit card. And then check with the travel insurance companies, not online. Check with the travel insurance companies, call them on the phone and say, will you insure me to go to Belgium? Will you insure me to go to Portugal? If they say no, that tells you everything you need to know. But right now, I would go under the conditions I gave you, okay? Obviously, it's a fluid situation. It's changing by the day, in some cases by the hour. That's why you want to pay with a credit card and only use a U.S. airline so you're protected in terms of your financial investment. All right. Sandy says, greetings from Chatsworth. Greetings from Pennsylvania, says Gail. Pat's saying, greetings from Cambria. That's in California. Happy to see Italy has dropped its COVID testing requirements for entry, at least for the next month. Everybody's dropping those testing requirements, with one exception, us. You still need that 24-hour negative COVID test before you come home. But the European Union countries, one by one, have dropped it. And guess what's happening in about 3 weeks? Hawaii is dropping it. That's a big deal. Check out how they've changed their protocols now. They have absolutely dropped it. So that's a good news. All right, let's keep going here. Bernice is saying, thanks for the updates. How do we get a pass for the upcoming great event for Tanzania in New York? Well, here's the deal. It's closed. It's a special screening for the president of Tanzania. It will be happening on April 18th. But bottom line is, on April 21st, the show premieres. So check your local listings. It's on PBS. It's also available on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus. And I hope you get a chance to watch it. Hello from Denver. Hello, Evelyn. Veronica says, try to plan a trip to Paris in June. Package deal states airfare non-refundable. Do we still get a credit back if we need to cancel? Who's doing this package deal and what airline is it on? You know what? Go back to the package deal and say you'll do your airfare separately. Do not get stuck in a package deal with a third-party provider. We went through all that, you know what, during the pandemic. We don't want to repeat that. What about flying from Japan to Singapore in 2 weeks' time? Any recommendations? Japan is going to open up this month, and Singapore is opening up. So there's my recommendation. In about 2 weeks, I think you'll be able to go. Evelyn says, kudos to the TSA. You know, the TSA gets a lot of heat, a lot of it from me, right? TSA stands for, thousands standing around or taking scissors away. But as a frontline agent, when somebody like that as an agent detects an impaired pilot, credit where credit's due. So thank you to the TSA. Okay. Tom says, hello from LA. We have plans to go to Paris on April 1st. Do you think I should cancel? You've heard my answer already. It was a qualified answer. Follow my advice, roll the dice. You still have a plan B if you have to cancel at the last minute. Robin's saying hello from Williamsburg. Ann says, I am due to travel to Budapest from Newark via Frankfurt for an ASTA gala. A gala, okay. Do you anticipate any problems? You know what? I don't know if the Hungarians have dropped their antigen test on arrival yet, but I think they will have by the time you go. Every country in that area is dropping it. Melissa says, I'm heading to Bucharest April 11th for a 2-week Danube cruise. Should I consider evacuation insurance? Let me tell you something. You should consider evacuation insurance if you're going to Baltimore. There's a reason why you should get medical evacuation and repatriation insurance. It's because your own medical insurance doesn't really cover you that well for that. And it especially doesn't cover you outside the United States. So you can get an annual policy. It's about $500. It's well worth it because if you don't have it, your medical cost, your transportation costs will be in the six figures. So, okay, now there are some exclusions to that policy in terms of age, pre-existing medical conditions, the usual. So read it, go to a travel agent, have them explain you the language. But listen, I've had MedJet Assist, that's the user I use, for the last 20 years. And watch me as I knock on wood. I've never had to use it, but I'm happy I have the card. All right, Patrick says, he'll see me at the LA Travel and Adventure Show next weekend. That's a shameless plug for me, but thank you, Patrick, for making it. I will be at the LA Convention Center next March 12th and 13th. That's Saturday and Sunday. I'll be speaking there and happy to see everybody who can show up. Would love to see you. And this is the question. Ellen Fisher says, any word when the U.S. might drop COVID requirements to enter the U.S.? I'm expecting they're going to do it, but before Memorial Day, probably not. I'm also expecting a decision on the mask mandate. Remember, that deadline is coming up, March 18th. The U.S. usually preempts that deadline date and makes an announcement earlier. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. We're already at March 3rd. So it's going to happen in the next, 15 days. So stay tuned on that. My guess is they're going to extend the mask mandate as well. Patty says hello from Kentucky. Hello, Patty. Jimmy says, hello, Jimmy. Thank you for that. Lois says, hi from Georgia. When will vaccines not be required to re-enter the U.S. from Europe? Vaccines? No, give that up. Proof of vaccination is going to be with us for quite some time. Do not kid yourself, right? The reason why they're going to get rid of the testing is for people who can prove they've been vaccinated. It's as simple as that. You don't get one without the other. Carmen, hello from Tampa. Any thoughts on if the U.S. test requirement for returning international travelers may change? I just answered that, Carmen. I think they're going to do that change. It probably won't happen before Memorial Day. Paul says, greetings from Ashland, Virginia. I'm going to Italy in April and May. We'll be driving for about 3 weeks. Any suggestions for a downloadable map or an app to download and avoid cell phone roaming charges? Guess what? It's Google. I used it all through Europe. Same Google that I use here. But here's my question to you. Please remember the first and most important rule of Italian driving. What's behind me is not important. They're crazy. You have my best wishes by driving a car in Italy. Good luck. Betty, greetings from Punta Gorda, Florida, and leaving for Cancun. All right. Ryan says, do you know anything about foreign exchange trading platform scams? Well, look, it's not a scam, but why would you trade in that? We're dealing with volatile currency right now. The Russian ruble has tanked. At the same time, the central bank in Russia has raised interest rates from 9.5% to 20% overnight. I mean, you really want to speculate with that? I wouldn't do it. Okay, here we go. Okay, Gail says, my husband and I have global entry cards. If we are traveling with someone that doesn't, can they get to go through global entry with us? Gail, that's why you have the card. You get to go through. They don't. You can meet them on the other side of baggage claim in about a year. Tell them to get a global entry card. That's right. Okay? There are no free passes here. And the question of the Gail says, so they don't have to stand in the long lines for immigration. That's why you have the card. Okay? Okay, Ivan says, greetings from Chicago. For those in the Chicago, the musical Peter has always mentioned, Come From Away is very good to catch at the Cadillac Palace through March. Oh, it's coming up. Yeah. You know what? It's playing now. I think it's almost over there. Come From Away. What a great musical. An unknown cast, an unknown score, and I've seen it 3 times. End of the show, I'm not giving you spoilers, but you will be standing on your chair, yelling, screaming, and clapping. That's the kind of this is. I highly recommend it. Based, of course, the reason why I like it so much, it's based on a true story and a story that I covered up in Gander in Newfoundland after September 11th. Okay. Charles is connecting from Arusha in Tanzania, the base, of course, Mount Kilimanjaro. Hello, Charles. BJ says, just back from a 3-week trip to France. They really need us to visit. Flight back on Air France was half full. French protocols are excellent. Antigen just only 20 euros compared to the $100 I paid in the US. We know this. You know, the cottage industry known as COVID-19 tests, my hope is that, please, if everybody gets vaccinated, we don't have to pay money for tests anymore, right? Okay. Willie's saying, greetings from Atchison, Kansas. He's headed to Denver tomorrow, then San Diego. Okay, good for you. Tisha says, speculation about Putin's next move is already starting to impact my clients' travel decisions. No kidding. Yesterday, she said she had a client tell me they'd like to avoid Europe for their December 2022 trip. Instead, we're only looking at Australia and Asia. Guys, I'm going to hold your hands, figuratively. The worst 4-letter word in the world that starts with F as it applies to travel is what? Fear. Get real here. We're not dealing here with Putin invading, Belgium. Do your homework. Read your history. Watch the news. Be ready to pivot. But don't just do a knee-jerk reaction and pull the plug. I'd like to share something with you, and it may sound politically incorrect. I promise you it's not. It's pragmatic. The best time to travel anywhere, in my book, is after there's been a war, a civil disturbance, or a natural disaster. Number one, the people there are literally thrilled to see you. Number two, you're helping their economy. And number three, if you're so inclined, and you should be, you can help them build back while you're there. It's the best experience you could have. So looking 6 or 7 months ahead, or even 8 months ahead and say, I'm going now because of happening, is, in my book, short-sighted and insensitive. The people in that region are going to need you. And how can you contribute? By traveling there responsibly, intelligently, and strategically. Okay. Lindy says, Macron just dropped France's health pass as of March 14th. Also, no masks except for public transportation. That's where we're going, folks. The mask mandate in states and cities is going away. Public transportation stays. Subways, buses, trains, and planes. That's where we're going to be, at least through the end of May. But it's nice to see that they dropped the health pass. Okay. Okay, Carrie's saying hello from Tucson. And Gail's saying, I should have said that people that might be traveling with us are, okay, well, you didn't say that, Gail. They still need to get a global entry. Okay. All right. Neil says American Airlines refusing to credit vouchers issued in 2020, saying travel must be completed by 3/31/2022. trip to New York City planned for September 2022. Options. Yeah. Who are you talking to? Are you going online? Are you speaking to a reservations agent? Or are you speaking to their supervisor? How did you buy your ticket? Through a travel agent, or did you do it online? Or did you do it through a third party? All these things will determine the advice that I give you. So let me know. Okay. Lorena says, for those going on safari, happy World Wildlife Day. Who knew? Okay. Eddie says, sorry, I tuned in late. I have to pay my final Mediterranean cruise payments on April 9th for July. I am leaning to just paying it as I did take the insurance. Eddie, who'd you get the insurance from? I hope it wasn't the cruise line. I hope you got it from a third party. But either way, I think you'll be okay to take that cruise in July. All right, now it's time. You got it. Photo of the week. Here it comes. Some of you might recognize this. No, it's not the nuclear test site in Nevada. Nope. It is. You know where it is. It's the temple outside of Luxor in Egypt, taken by Kathy Bennett. And she said she just returned from Egypt. Perfect weather and no tourists. See what I mean? Now's the time to go. She says, what a joy. Her temple is an architectural marvel. It is. Thank you for that, Kathy. And if you got a photo of the week that you think qualifies, send it in. I promise you no more photos of the week from Fire Island. It was a one-shot deal last week. But now we're open to everybody, all right? And time for our trivia question and a little sidebar on that as well. Who wants to tell me what the tallest statue in the world is and where it is? I'll wait. Where's the tallest statue in the world and where is it? I'll answer some more questions till we get back to that. Hold on a second. Here we go. I'm scrolling down. Lots of stuff coming in here. Hold on. Where are they? Okay. All right. You all guessed Egypt. You did. That's great. Joan says, good morning from San Jose. Neil says, I purchased it through a travel agent. Hours on the phone with agent and with American. Went up the chain with no satisfaction. Well, this is where a travel agent earns their dollars. If you booked it through a travel agent, they should be advocating for you. If they don't, then you email me. No guarantees, but I'll look at it. peter@petergreenberg.com with your name, phone number, question, or problem, and all the details, right? The reservation confirmation number, otherwise known as the PNR. In airline lingo, that means passenger name record, and any kind of correspondence you may have already received in writing from the airline. And let me see what I can do. All right, let's keep going. And guess it was Brazil. No, and it was Egypt. Okay. Now, here are the guesses on where you think the tallest statue in the world is. Oh, that's what it was. Anne guessed Brazil. Evelyn said India. Priya says the Buddha statue in Hong Kong. Lois said Brazil. Sean says in Cambodia. Gail says it's the Christ statue in Rio de Janeiro. Ellen says India. Guess what, guys? Wrong. Except, here's one interesting one. Darlene says it's the Statue of Unity in India. Darlene, you're half right. It's actually the Statue of Unity in China. But I want to share with you a little known story about our own statue right here in New York, the Statue of Liberty. Do we know the history of that statue? Okay, most people will tell us that the French gave it to us. Well, that's technically correct, but that's not who it was meant for. A French sculptor was basically commissioned to design it for Alexandria in Egypt. And halfway through the design and the building of it, guess what? They went over budget, the Egyptians ran out of money, and they said, we can't pay for it and we can't take the statue. So they were then sitting in France with an unfinished statue. Somebody came up with an idea, hey, put a torch in there and let's just give it to America. So guess what? That's not just the Statue of Liberty, that's the Statue of Regifting. That's our Statue of Liberty. All right, a few more questions to go through here. All right, so it's not India and it's not North Korea. All right, now a couple of other things. We got other questions that you guys have sent in during the week. Let me get to those now. Here we go. Okay, Karina says, what is your area of no-fly zone expansion guesstimate due to Russia and Ukraine? Well, There's a no-fly area over Ukraine. There's a rerouting area over the entire region, which means a 2-hour flight becomes a 4-hour flight, or there's a refueling stop needed, or it doesn't go at all, which also means people misconnect on flights as well. But now we're talking about a much longer, a much bigger no-fly zone, not because it's going to be enforced by the military, but because airlines are just simply saying, we're not flying there. And that's over the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia, which would be any kind of polar route going from the United States to Asia. Of course, the polar routes going from Europe into Asia as well. That's a lot of territory. All right. Okay. Patty says, how is the Ukraine crisis affecting travel in Europe right now? It's tanking. Americans are fearful. They're canceling their reservations. They're not listening to me. Okay. Marie says, here's an interesting question. I had a ticket to Moscow for the summer. Will my airline automatically refund me? Well, first of all, Marie, which airline is it? If it's Aeroflot, you won't be flying there because they're not flying here. Remember, even if they could fly here now with the value of the ruble, they couldn't pay their fuel bill to go back. Their funds are frozen. So I'm assuming if you're going to Moscow on a U.S. carrier, it would be Delta. I would call Delta. These are extraordinary circumstances, even beyond Delta's control. Let's see if they'll refund your money. All right. At the very least, if it's a U.S. carrier, you won't lose your money. You could apply it to another flight. Okay. Does Spain currently require a negative test for entry if you're vaccinated? They did last week. By the end of this week, probably not. Diane, where are you suggesting for summer travel this year? You know what? There are 196 countries in the world. There are only about 7 I wouldn't go to if you're going overseas. That's right, 7. They're obvious. Syria, Yemen, Ukraine, Russia, Chechnya, also part of that. Maybe Somalia. And I'm sort of running out. Oh, yeah, Newark. Okay. Kidding, maybe. No, but seriously, that's it. The choices are still open for you. You may just have to get there a different way. Remember, Australia is now open. New Zealand's going to open by June. Japan opens up later this month. Thailand's open. Cambodia is open. Vietnam is open, right? And it's a buyer's market, especially now because if people aren't going, they whip out the old playbook and discount. And discounting this time will not generate traffic because people are too scared. But you know what? It's okay to be concerned. It's even better to be smart. Figure it out. Okay. Brett says, do you need to be boosted to enter Hawaii? No, you just need to be vaccinated within 270 days. And remember, Hawaii's dropping a lot of those protocols. They had the most rigid protocols in the United States. They're dropping them later this month. I think on the 22nd of March, by the way. Okay. Here's one, John. I'm worried about rising gas prices and taking a family road trip this summer through the national parks. Do you think it might be more economical to fly and rent a car? Well, first of all, what we've noticed in past years is even with gas above $5 a gallon, people still use their cars. We're creatures of habit, and especially if we're not flying, we're rediscovering our own country. The problem this year, John, is based on what's going on in the Ukraine and our habits, looks like everybody's going to be discovering our country. And if that's the case, you won't be able to get into a national park. They're filling up now, right? Rental car situation is getting a little better. Why? Because they're finally getting deliveries that they should have had last November. But it's not solved yet. You're still going to overpay a lot. Look, unless gas is $22 a gallon, be economical, especially if you got 4 people in the car, do a little math, it's still cheaper to drive. Okay? Getting into the national park, another issue. Okay. Lydia says, I've seen a lot of lists of where to donate to help Ukraine. Is there a way that you know that would go directly to help the people that are suffering there? I do. There's a great group in California called Operation USA. They're the first online to get out there. There's also AmeriCares. These guys are on the ground. You're not going through bureaucracy. These people take the money and it goes directly to where it's needed for the things that are needed, right? It's not like just, donating pencils. Nobody needs pencils in Ukraine right now, right? So go to Operation USA, that's opusa.org or americares.org. I think you'll be very happy with what they do with your money. All right, looking for last couple of questions because we're racing out of here today. I'm looking for the last couple of questions. Okay. Here we go. Kay says, I always believed the gift from France and not the whole story, but now you know. Okay. Ivan says, okay. There are broken chains, shackles at the feet of Lady Liberty. Okay. I challenge anybody to tell me, were they on the statue before they gave it to us or before they decided to give it to us? Let me know. Do your homework. Okay. Ruler says, do I think it'll be hard to go to the EU, Spain, and France this summer? I think it'll be really easy. Remember, given the tragedy in the Ukraine, and we cannot discount that, it's terrible, and it's getting worse. And our hearts and prayers go out to everybody there and everybody who's helping them. But then there's also an economic aspect to this. None of those EU countries, by the way, including Ukraine, wants to go through another summer of no revenue. They will find a way. They will. Okay, Lorraine says, if you're going cross country, book lodging soon. Exactly. U.S. coastal cities and all along the interstates is filling up because the initial reaction from about the Ukraine in this country is, hey, Gladys, jump in the car. Let's go see our friends in Indiana. So get ready for a very crowded summer in the U.S. Okay. Here we go. I think we're done. Okay, some housekeeping notes. Of course, our radio show this week, and you'll listen in on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't find a station in your market, it's easy to listen to us. Just go right to our imaginatively named website, petergreenberg.com. Log on to the radio icon at about 5 minutes after 10 New York time. You'll hear the whole show. It's also a podcast early next week. Travel Detective premieres starting in May. And of course, as of April 21st, the premiere of Tanzania, the Royal Tour. Check your local listings on PBS. I'll see you on the radio. Have a great rest of the week. And again, let's keep our hearts and our minds and all of our best thoughts with the people of the Ukraine. I'll see you next week.